I often get asked if it's worth it to go to art school or not. I don't want to take away from anyone's experience, and I think there's nothing wrong with the pursuit of a higher education. However, I will tell you that my experience was a negative one. From a young age, I always knew I wanted to go to art school. My parents were always supportive of me and my pursuit of this goal, and for that I'm so incredibly grateful. They nurtured my creativity in ways that I cannot begin to thank them for, and are ultimately the reason that I continue to thrive today. I took any art class that was offered in my early schooling years, and even took AP Art under the direction of one of my 3 art teachers that my high school offered. She was an amazing teacher, and I'm humbled to have been a student of hers, but she was also extremely narrow-minded when it came to anime and anime-influenced art. In high school, this was not a problem for me. I was happily enthralled with hyperrealism and the pursuit of learning, which I believed was just to be able to have the technique to perfectly recreate real life. I could also juggle my own pursuit of anime art on the side. A perfect balancing act. Occasionally, my stylistic choices would encroach upon my portraits, but I just chalked it up to something that I needed to learn. I was also told very frequently that I would never get a job in art by drawing anime. This upbringing conditioned me to believe that perfection was the goal, and the key to success was finding the opportunity in which you could hone perfection. My high school art teacher spoke extremely highly of our local art school, Tyler School of Arts, an academic program nestled on the campus of Temple University. At this age, I was so fueled by a desire to impress my teacher, in addition to being extremely anxious about the thought of leaving home to go to an out-of-state college, that I was so blind to the idea that I could choose. Choose a different path, choose a different school. Junior year was quickly progressing, and so I didn't want to choose. The choice was right there in front of me. I applied to Tyler and was accepted. I didn't know what the plan was if I wasn't. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that's where I wanted to go. My first choice was my only choice. I couldn't have been happier, or so I thought. I'll save you the details for my freshman year. They're pretty awful. Basically, every freshman has to take 5-hour foundation courses, non-negotiable. And remember about that anxiety I was talking about going out of state? Well, I also didn't want to live on campus, so I had a 2-hour commute, one way. It was basically hell on earth. 4 hours of commuting in addition to 5-hour block classes had me out all day, only to have to come home, do my homework, and sleep with maybe a bite to eat. But I gritted my teeth and I got it done. Even when I had to take my mandatory 5-hour 6 a.m. class of Introduction to Digital Art, which I basically could have taught. Honestly, I don't really remember sophomore year. Freshman was entirely foundation courses, basic knowledge of perspective, anatomy, how to observe, how to use Photoshop, etc. Junior year comes around and we finally get to announce our major. We got to pick what area we wanted to specialize in and focus on taking courses that reflected that. I picked illustration since the options were somewhat limited for 2D art. I simultaneously fell in love and began to hate my experience with art school. Illustration 101 was everything that I wanted to study. It focused on color, composition, even business techniques, and an introduction to publicizing and selling your artwork commercially. Drawing 101 was even better. I got to focus on subject matter that I was interested in, actually wanted to draw. People, portraits, animals. But then it came to painting 101. It was a joke of a class, exactly what you think of when you imagine the typical art class of students looking at abstract artwork and finding meaning to the shapes and colors. I butted heads with the professor a lot, and for me, the typical A+ perfectionist student, this was something that I was not accustomed to. I always found myself bending over backwards to appease my professors, but when my junior year came around, it was my chance to find my voice in my art again. Constantly, I was met with the criticism that my artwork was too anime. And it hurt. It hurt to hear that when all I wanted to do was recreate these hyper-realistic portraits of people. It wasn't an actual criticism, like how the shape of my subject's features resembles someone more of Asian descent, and if I changed the shape of the eyes, or the jawline, or the brow bone, that it might be representative of the subjects that we had for figure drawing. But no. It was just too anime. There were so many nights I would take the train home after a long day of presenting work that my professor was just unhappy with that I would cry. It felt like I wasn't allowed to have a voice. I began to resent everything and just poured my heart into actually drawing anime. At At this point in time, I was traveling across the continental United States and Canada, selling my blasphemous anime artwork at anime conventions, so I wasn't really concerned about what the future held for me. The literal straw that broke the camel's back was my final exam for that class. We were all given 3x4 foot MDF boards and told to do whatever we wanted with it. The morning of my presentation, I slapped a bunch of crumpled up newspaper with Mod Podge and splattered paint on it like I was Jackson Pollock. I didn't even bother covering the whole board. I was done, checked out, over it. I didn't even want to present anything, but I didn't want to show up empty-handed. I took my train, walked into class, propped it up on the whiteboard ledge, and took a step back, waiting for my professor to ream into me. She paused, looked at my work, that was still wet, by the way, and said, "This is the best thing you've done all semester." I can laugh about it now, but in that moment, I felt like my eyes were going to pop out of my skull. I had to try my hardest to not make a face or scream. The next day, I dropped out of college. It had been instilled in me since a very young age that college was an incredible opportunity that not everyone gets to have, and so like a part of me felt like I was betraying my parents who supported me, and also myself. But I knew that I was dying on the inside. I knew that my creativity was being suffocated, and I did not feel that I could continue showing up as an empty shell day after day for another year. When I made this decision, I was already making very good money selling my artwork at anime conventions, and I didn't need the validation that I could pursue art professionally. I had already been doing it for years, and continued to do so for many years after. Sometimes I feel haunted by these events that ultimately led me to have a very split opinion about my artwork and growth as an artist. For a long time, I felt like everything should be rooted in realism and that stylistic choices, albeit anatomy, perspective, color, etc., were wrong, and I have so much regret about pushing those opinions onto my art friends at the time. At the end of the day, we as artists should be creating things that give us joy. Being an artist and a VTuber and seeing the monumental ripples that VTubing has created in the art sphere makes me wonder if I had chosen a different path, where I could have ended up today. But there's no point in regretting the past. It's about moving forward and using our experiences to help define our future choices. So, should you go to art school or not? I get asked often, and my knee-jerk reaction is to say no. However, my experience is my own unique journey and should only be a snippet for consideration. But what do you think? Have you had a similar experience? Have you had a better experience? I'm genuinely interested. Let me know in the comments.